Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 530 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Russ Riesinger. Janelle has the evening off. We want to update you on the latest developments that are happening due to concerns about the coronavirus or COVID-19. Officials are trying to flatten the curve by keeping people away from each other as much as possible to try and slow the spread of that virus, whose numbers have been rising rapidly. Yellowstone County commissioners, in conjunction with the city of Billings, issued a declaration of emergency in response to the continuing coronavirus concerns. This will allow the county to request additional funding to prevent and test for COVID-19 as the need arises. Also, the Billings City Council will still have its meeting tonight, but has asked the public to watch the meeting remotely via Community 7 television or Community 7's website. People who choose to attend that meeting may be subject to assigned seating to allow 6 feet of distance per person. New protocol is now in place for the Yellowstone County Detention Center. According to Captain Roger Bodine, they are limiting visitors and temporarily stopping all outside groups from entering. And the Crow and Northern Cheyenne tribes declared states of emergency yesterday, implementing travel restrictions for tribal employees for the next 14 days. All non-essential tribal employees are required to work from home. The Crow tribe is urging anyone who traveled outside the reservations to self-quarantine for 14 days. Well, the coronavirus-inspired mayhem on Wall Street now exceeds what was experienced during the 2008 financial crisis. Today was the third time in recent weeks that trading was halted for 15 minutes. The Dow plunged close to 3,000 points. Its worst point drop ever. The S&P 500 plummeted 12%, and the Nasdaq had its worst day ever. Also, a huge announcement from the Yellowstone County health officer today that is going to affect a lot of people here. All bars, restaurants, brew pubs, wineries, and casinos in the county will close through next Monday, March 23rd. Q2's Mitch Legge standing by now in the newsroom with more on that. Mitch?
Well, Russ, this order from the health officer came down at about 4 p.m. today. Officials said today that this order is truly unprecedented, and the Yellowstone County health officer, John Felton, said that the decision to close bars, restaurants, and casinos is the most difficult he's had to make in his position. Now, this move was made after Montana Governor Steve Bullock issued direction today for Montanans to not go to gatherings of more than 50 people. This practice is called social distancing. Now, there are some exceptions for area restaurants. Food services that offer takeout and delivery can remain in operation. As well, these closures do not apply to places that serve a population that depends on it, like cafeterias at the hospitals, local colleges, and nursing homes. After the closure, the health officer will look at the COVID-19 cases in Montana to determine whether or not the closures will extend.
And so what we'll be looking at is sort of in two large pieces. One is what's the epidemiology in our community? What are we looking at in terms of how rapidly cases are growing, what the degree of spread is, what the test results that are just now starting to come in, what they'll start to tell us. Because remember, we just now have an increase in capacity for testing. That will be one element. The other element is, can we find alternative ways to reach that social distancing of keeping people apart that restaurants, bars, casinos, those types of establishments can implement in a safe and consistent way to allow them to operate, but maintain that social distance is critical.
Gymnasiums and theaters are not included in this health officer order. Felton said that the recommended social distancing space of 6 feet per person can be maintained at those facilities. Russ?
All right, thank you, Mitch. As the coronavirus outbreak continues to wreak havoc on the nation and the state, Governor Steve Bullock and his administration have issued directives to try and slow the spread of that virus here. Today, they answered questions about those steps and indicated that further steps will be considered in the future. MTN's Mike Dennison met with them at the Capitol, has the story.
On Sunday, the Bullock administration took 3 major actions meant to slow the spread of infections from the coronavirus. All schools in Montana are now closed through March 27th. Visitations to nursing homes are suspended, and the governor is recommending people refrain from holding or attending all gatherings of more than 50 people. Bullock said Monday he knows these steps will impose hardships on many families, but that they're needed to protect people vulnerable to the disease.
I can't underscore the seriousness of following these measures to help our neighbors, friends, and families, and because their safety really is in all of our hands. We Montanans, we've always rallied together in times of crisis. There's no doubt that family schedules will be uprooted. Sacrifices are going to have to be made. But I think the time to act is really now, before the spread of infection gets worse.
When asked how long these changes will be enforced or whether more actions are on tap, State Medical Officer Greg Holtzman said it's difficult to know.
As we start to look at how individual hospitals are being hit, who is being most affected, what are the best strategies that we can do to keep people safe, I think these guidelines will be continually updated.
As for whether restaurants and bars can remain open in Montana, the governor said at this point that decision is being left to local health departments, some of which are already acting. As of Monday afternoon, 204 Montanans have been tested for the virus, with only 6 testing positive. Bullock said all 6 are being treated at home. The governor and health officials said their goal is to keep the number of positive cases in Montana at a minimum and therefore decrease the stress on healthcare providers. So at this point, it looks like maybe one thing is certain, that Montana's response to this outbreak is still evolving and bound to change. At the Capitol, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
The governor's office also said today that 8 Montana Army National Guard soldiers were activated to help 8 Montanans returning from quarantine. The Montana residents were quarantined at Dobbins Air Reserve Base in Georgia after being in proximity to COVID-19 on a cruise ship. And again, as of right now, there are 6 people in Montana believed to have tested positive for the coronavirus, as well as another woman from Montana who tested positive in Maryland. But that number could rise. Another 109 tests were conducted today alone, with the results expected tonight or tomorrow. Nationally, the United States has seen nearly 4,300 cases and 78 deaths. The number of deaths has nearly doubled since Friday. Public schools across Montana are now closed for at least the next 2 weeks as the state tries to keep the virus from exploding here like it has in other places. Billings School Superintendent Greg Upham joined me a little earlier this afternoon to talk about the situation. Well, Superintendent, these really are unprecedented times that we haven't seen in our lifetimes of schools being ordered to close like this. The first day here today, recap what your day has been like and what are the main issues that you've run into?
Well, I think in fairness, my day started 2 days ago. We met with our administrators last week, anticipated a potential closure. That helped. I'd like to compliment our building administrators and all of our support team. But today, we started the conversations last night after the announcement from the governor's office about what today would look like. And basically, we needed time. And so I instructed our all employees to just have our building administrators report to work today and our head custodians to make sure that we had our buildings were operating effectively. And then I wanted administrators in the building to make sure that if we had to dispense any medications for students or staff, that they had the ability to get that.
What are the main issues you're anticipating running into?
Well, you know, the first thing was just overall safety of our staff and our students, making sure that students were being taken care of and informed and communicated with, and staff the same way. I had a lengthy meeting with our leadership support team, which is the managers over the top, directors over the top of all the components. We went through all entities that we're facing right now. And basically what we're saying is the expectation is what we would like, and this is coming out later. So we want our employees to be available during our regular business times. If we need them, we will bring them in. We are going to offer instructional supports. We don't know what that looks like because we have to reach to our teachers to say, we do want to provide instruction, so what does that look like? This conversation started last week, so in the ability to support them. And the biggest thing with that is creating an equitable education platform for all students, because some families may have internet, some families may not have internet, some may have a device, some may not have a device. So we're going to rely on our teachers to make sure that that's equitable in their instruction.
There are a lot of students who really depend on public schools for a hot meal every day, or at least to make sure that they have a meal every day. What's being done to make sure that they can still get those meals?
Yeah, I compliment Sid Taylor and our food service staff. They were up this morning, thought they were going to need another day to ramp up, but they actually got food out today. That information is on our website about the locations that people can pick food up during the breakfast time and lunch times. I do want to make sure that our families understand that in order for them to receive the food, that the students have to be with the parent.
If this ends up going longer than 2 weeks, and maybe a good chance that that happens. What do you anticipate? How would that change things, and what are the plans if that does happen?
Well, the planning that we're walking out with, there's 3 tiers. We're going Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. Tier 1 is the governor's proclamation, the 2-week period. So we asked our teachers, plan for Tier 1. We are here. Plan for Tier 2. I asked them to look out at least a month in a Tier 2 offering. And then Tier 3 would take us through the end of the school year. So I want everybody in our organization to be thinking short term and then also long term.
Anything else that you feel like is important to mention right now about this?
Well, yeah, that we're not panicked. We are in a situation that we are in, and we will take it one day at a time. And our trustees are in full support. I compliment our community. I compliment our teachers. We'll just take this one day at a time.
Billings Schools is holding a virtual school board meeting. That's happening right now, and you can view that on the Billings Schools Facebook page. Blood banks are also seeing a downward trend in blood donations as this crisis worsens and many people stay home. Vitalant expresses their concern for the matter by ensuring the public that donating blood is safe and is needed for patients, especially those in cancer treatment.
Billings in particular, we're the only place that collects platelets. Which is used for it's used for a lot of different things, but mostly cancer patients and cancer treatments. What happens is people who undergo chemotherapy, a lot of times they'll need platelets to be able to do their chemotherapy, because chemotherapy destroys everything. So they depend upon platelet transfusions.
Aaron Baker from Vitalant also tells us that the company will lose about 280 donors due to having to cancel 15 mobile drives in the past 2 days. For more information and to make an appointment, you can go to vitalant.org, or you can call 877-258-4825. Billings hospitals have now set up testing sites this morning, but are cautioning people to not just show up and expect to be tested for the coronavirus. Those coming to this testing site at St. Vincent's Healthcare must be referred by a doctor. The Billings Clinic has also set up a test site in its former dialysis building on the west side of the hospital campus. In the meantime, health officials across the state recommend people practice social distancing to reduce the risk of those vulnerable. And just a reminder, we are providing updates throughout the day on KTVQ.com and all our social media platforms. Be sure to download the KTVQ app for breaking news alerts. And with the concern and uncertainty surrounding this virus, we know many of you have unanswered questions. So we'd like to hear from you. You can email your questions and concerns to news@ktvq.com, and we'll do our very best to get those questions answered by local health professionals in coming days. Well, a Sunday night standoff and shootout in Dillon resulted in the death of a Lewistown murder suspect, Doug Foster. Lewistown Police Chief Justin Jennis said in a news release today that the 47-year-old Foster was involved in an officer-involved shooting and was pronounced dead at the scene. All of the officers and deputies safely escaped that incident. Foster was the suspect in the Saturday shooting death of David Byron Sessions. Police were called to the scene in Lewistown about 5:30 Saturday morning, where witnesses identified Foster as the suspect. Well, coming up next on tonight's 5:30 News, price wars on energy bills and what to expect. And in sports, the PBR's motto is the show must go on. Scott's going to talk to Flint Rasmussen about one of the strangest weekends of his career, working in an empty arena.
And coming up in weather, hey, it was a pretty nice day today. Tomorrow looks like it'll be another quiet day weather-wise, but by midweek we're going to see temperatures fall and rain, snow, and even freezing rain could fall with it.
You're watching MTN News with Janelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Green. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.